know, usually I pose a people only for a couple of years, but we're probably expert here in Adrian. A lot of you would have heard about some of his business ventures, especially the big ones, the Feeney Group, but then later on came Nova Feeney. You would have seen his, that he's a gold sponsor of the business school, so his name is Oliver and his wife, and the PhDs, all the other sponsors. Adrian has also, is still currently a member of the board here at the business school. And in addition to this, his very big impact in the building industry, Adrian is really what we call a serial entrepreneur. So he started a number of smaller businesses that he's either still owns or he's on sold and moved on. Most of you know Just Burgers. Maybe he's a partner in that. Little Creatures. That's an interesting story that he might share about that with us today. So it's a rather sort of unstructured introduction, but I wanted to really mention that I have a lot of respect for Adrian because he's not only a very successful businessman, he's also a person that really upholds his values and ethics in the way that he does business. He deeply cares about his products and the impact that they have on the environment, the users of his products. He cares about the people away from him, for him, their well-being. And all this comes through in the way that he conducts business. So I think that we have a lot to learn from him. He cares about the art. He was talking on that before. He's a local art Okay, so I'll just leave it to that. It's not really a formal introduction. And I'll pass it on to David to address this today. I'll ask him to give us a little bit of background on who he is, but primarily talk on the reasons and what makes him interested in investing, starting businesses, and how does he actually make the decision to exit and so.
Okay. Can you hear me all here? Good afternoon. What I'm going to try and cover is some of the lessons about, or in a sense, how do you pick the types of businesses you want to start or enter, some of the decisions and the processes you go through that have to be made to pick those topics, and then how or when is the time to exit or sell. Historically, obviously I went to school here in Perth. I actually, in the previous century, attended UWA with a commerce degree here. And from that, I really used the fundamentals of what I learnt in commerce, entering a family business. My father had started a property company in the 50s and was a property company which did construction and development. So, being a good Italian son, I entered that business after travelling overseas and also studying design overseas in London. So when I commenced, it was a fairly traditional housing and medium density property development company. It was successful. It had lived in the what was called the project home industry through the 60s and into the 70s. And when I started, all I could see in the 80s when I started was the project home industry. So the project homes are all those things you see, Darwin, Cock and BGC, and all those ads on Saturday's paper. I learned the lesson about maturity and life cycle of products, and that looked like a saturated area because there were many people spending many dollars advertising. So I wanted to move the organisation in different areas. So to do that, I picked specific areas that I would believe that I had the greatest opportunity of success in. So one was medium and high density. What I'll do is, after I go through each of these topics, I'll explain what the next area of study was and then reflect back on it. We went into hospitality, both in accommodation and in food and beverage. We went into retirement housing, and also through those industries we also went into separate businesses, and obviously Little Creatures 13 or 14 years ago was one of them. So, as I mentioned, we looked at the life cycle of products. Everything, generally, be it the automobile, petrol-driven automobile, has a life cycle. Sailing ships, in transport sense, had a life cycle, etc., etc. Project homes had a life cycle. They still exist as products, they don't disappear, but the profitability of them and the competition levels make them a different concept of viability. Then the other areas that I would look at would always be what were the demographic changes coming in front of me, and also how does population growth affect us. So all of those things are quite simple to study, and luckily in Australia the APS gathers a lot of that information for you. So through understandings and interpretations of what those demographic changes deliver and how population change affects you, you can identify specific industries. So obviously in demographic change you can quickly identify there was an ageing population that was peaking most probably 2030. You can understand the segmentation of what segments of the youth market were going to be bigger in front of you versus the ones that were diminishing. Through population growth, you could look at predictions of maybe what's confronting us now as in food crisis and a global concept. So you'd start to pick up topics from that, and if they then supported the industries that you may be interested in or have a passion for, because obviously it's a lot easier if you're enjoying the segments you're going into. And then another thing that's, I think, ultimately important is to try and read or get an understanding of what do you see and what do you perceive as global trends that you're going to confront. Okay? So some, you could look at suburbanism, suburbanisation of cities such as Perth and what's happening around the world since the 30s and 40s. But you can then identify there was also another trend happening called urbanism or villagisation. So while the mass was moving to suburbia, some people wanted urbanism or living in villages. Okay? While you saw the globe continuing and rushing towards monoculture, be it within any form of commodity, as you know, people look the same in their dress globally, be it Gap or whatever it is, or eating at McDonald's or shopping at Coles, etc. But that also creates massive opportunities of individualisation. Okay, so then there's other segments that grow as the global things develop. As we saw the efficiency of, call it GE marketing and whatever, and you saw generally, let's say, a level of design disappear, you can see this classification of what's good design and what's bad design. So you can identify things establishing that way. While the fast food movement grew globally, you could actually see the slow food movement grow. Okay? And that's happened, and it's a global food movement that you can join the slow food organisations. While we've seen high tech move, you've seen also a demand for low tech. Okay, so in examples of, if they've made the hotel room so complicated to use, be it the phone or the light switch, there's actually a global response to that on some segments of the markets. So it's not all the markets. All the markets, sadly, in many categories, are moving to this common approach, but that actually creates enormous opportunities in all the other segments if you actually go through and think about that. You could also see the way society was, in a sense, breaking down from what was a village family unit structure that was very important and the utmost importance for 9,900 years of our life, that diminished in the last 70. You could actually see why a coffee culture would be created. Coffee, be it, call it the pub, the saloon, the coffee club, or whatever it is, the coffee shop, that product is a response to isolation and a breakdown of family structures. Okay? And you can globally map them, you can actually look at them, and they're all elements of socialisation as we create global isolation enormous levels of opportunity for you maybe to find something you're passionate about. And then over all of this, there's always the economic cycle. And the economic cycle is something that can be identified. I mean, there were a lot of people who would still say, yes, we were well aware there would be a point where the GFC would arrive. And there's just little things, but they're not that alarming. But Galbraith, one of the great economists, basically says, if they're lending money to people that they shouldn't be lending money to, there will be an economic recession. And it's as simple as that. Okay, because overall, when it gets to the point where the banks are throwing it out the door, you know everyone will be spending too much and there will be payback. So when you're starting to kind of create products and commodities or recurring income streams, because all the boys in the maths teams were very, very good at creating vending machines to become recurring income streams and then classifying them together and floating them on a market as a commodity, the world's going to stop it. And that's really what happened. So when I looked at all of these items and I broke it back into categories that were things that interested me, I actually look at, say, medium and high density. That was really just a product of urbanism versus suburbanism. Demographic change, late marriage, females in the workforce, proud to be gay, high divorce rates, etc. would create greater opportunities for medium and high density versus normal suburban products. Not in a market scale, a population scale, but in the demographic scale. So I could pick 7 segments that would grow faster than the population growth, move into that category, and move in an area that I would prefer to be in. So you could use architecturally driven good design, environmental design, etc., and capture a marketplace. So we moved into the CBD, did a lot of medium density, North Bridges, Perth, Subies, Fremantles, etc. I would always say, if there was a coffee shop in walking distance, I would get a higher price for my home unit because I knew that person is of a smaller scale and size in a family unit sense, therefore needs socialisation space, etc., etc. So you can actually pick up all the categories of demographic and global trends that then strengthen your argument for that segment that you want to enter. In hospitality, it was the same. We actually looked at, firstly, serviced apartments. We built up a chain of those through Perth. Why? You can see trends growing where more females were travelling individually as more women entered the workforce. So that was a large segment. That was very new, obviously from the 60s on. You could actually see the whole change with hospitality being for us was always accommodation and in some businesses food and beverage. You could actually see the slow food movement. We weren't interested in the fast food movement. We were interested more in the food movement on the other side, the slow food movement. And that's obviously everything that we see now, that people are interested in cooking, going to farmers markets, hanging around in coffee shops, going to small bars, having bars and collections of locations, be them Oxford Street Leadables, Subiacos, Mount Morleys, Frios, etc. So you could see all these movements happening. And you could actually identify where it's going to happen quite easily. There are obviously locations that have those traits where those types of people collect. And then you could actually look at the long-term trends of how those people would live. And if you're going into smaller apartments, okay, that's, our philosophy then on collecting property investment became it's generally got to be within walking distance of a train station. We saw that as a fixed product that countered global trends of environmental concern, fuel prices, etc. Trains will survive in the long term. They have, generally once you lay the tracks, we can still identify where those tracks are. One Retirement housing, again, that was a very direct product. Retirement housing, and call it retirement villages or whatever, are a product of westernisation. They actually, as the family unit, if you go back 100 years, in any extended family, the women in that family generally were the carers. So there weren't many retirement villages in 1880. If you go through society to 1980, the most Western societies, generally Northern European context, okay, which had an earlier movement of women into the workforce, therefore a smaller family unit of carers, developed social retirement housing. Holland, Germany, Canada, North America, England, Australia. Okay, so they all linked to those products as the women moved into the workforce. You can then quickly get the ABS, figure out where those segments live, where they can trend to, map it. You know, you can do this with overlays of suburbia anywhere, and figure out quite accurately, based on lifespan predictions, when the peak would be. So that's really what I did when I left uni, did that for a year, figured it out, and then we went and developed products in that area. So you could look at global trends, demographic trends, and all of those movements that actually would say, this is a wise commercial decision. And we entered the decision, and this is the third part of the discussions, we entered the decision, the industry in the 80s, and we knew we were going to leave by 2011. In those days, 2031 was the demographic peak of the age segment over 65s in Australia. If we had to exit that industry, we had to leave the next owner a large growth in front of him. We did actually, it's an actuarial valuation obviously on what a retirement product is. And we actually left in 2007 because we thought the world was going to crash in 2007 or 8. And we actually left and sold out to Babcock & Browns, who then collapsed the following year after they dominated and floated $1 billion+ of retirement housing into the marketplace. So it was a very kind of defined, cold prediction that we played 20+ years earlier, which just kind of came off. We brought it forward based on what we saw as really just very basic global trends that are very easy to remember. Little Creatures, in a sense, is a similar study. If you look at monoculture, if you took a picture of Australia 100+ years ago, there were breweries scattered all over the earth, all over Australia. Okay, there must be hundreds of breweries. In every town in Kalgoorlie, there was half a dozen in Boulder, and everywhere, they're all over the place. The whole country was covered in them. That then slowly became, I think, 3 or 4 major brewers in Australia. Now, as you know, you live with 2 major brewers in Australia. So that's the fast food side of monoculture. We saw the slow food side of what happens. People wanted to taste something again, okay, because everyone thought Swan Lager, or whatever it's called these days, tasted good because they didn't taste anything else in the 70s and 80s. So we saw the craft beer movement growing. People wanted to taste, be individuals, have different flavours in their mouths, and we could see the growth was enormous. You could actually just look overseas. You could see 20 years of movement of craft beer growing all over Earth. Quietly, slowly, but it was happening all over the planet. So the intention for us was then, okay, how do we do that? How do we put the right team, the right culture, put it in the right place, put the right branding, make sure the culture and philosophy of the staff, the whole not complex things that you need McKinsey's to analyse for you. They're they're things that are actually exposed to you if you think about the products you're looking at, understand their context holistically, and believe that there's a lot more to learn than what you think you know. Okay, so we always make sure it's a continual learning stream. And whatever you're doing, you can continually do better. Every batch of Little Creatures Pale Ale was different. They might have tasted 99% the same, but I guarantee you every batch was different. Every batch that was ever made was trying to make it a little bit better every time. So all of those things are very, very important. So when you go through all of these changes in businesses, what I'm trying to really capture here is the kind of rules of starting a business aren't very complex. Most people learnt them all and read them in the first few texts here at uni. So you've got to kind of believe what the lecturers say, or just read the books. But the basics and the fundamentals are about really discovering the items and the products that actually you've got a passion for, you want to understand them, you actually strive to understand them. Research is a very, very big part of every product we deliver. We never know enough about any product we're doing at all, and that's down to the door handle that goes into a room. Okay, so we're continually doing research at whatever level to actually understand what is the best product, or how do you deliver it in the best way, and then how do you actually make sure you're building the right team around you to actually live through that process. No one individual generally has the knowledge to deliver the ultimate outcome anymore. The complexities of what we're living on in Earth, the angles that competition come from, really doesn't allow an individual by itself to think he's smart enough. In property development, the most dangerous thing we always say is your ego when you think you're smarter than the market. Just because you've been successful 200 times in a row, it makes no difference. The market will always be smarter than you. Okay, so the whole 100 competitors, a billion competitors, whatever they are, they're always going to be smarter than the greatest individual in any industry, and you can see that with Nokia or whoever you are. Okay? So therefore it's about having the opportunity to create the right team around you, who work with you, and who actually understand how you actually, and the reasons why, the philosophy of why you're doing this in whatever product you're doing. So we do it across a lot of different products. Everything's got a property background because that's where we kind of sit and invest in and look at our whole long-term structuring. But everything else is an evolution of products that overlay within that property cycle. So how do you exit? Obviously, I explained the retirement village model. In the Little Creatures model, we had an understanding of there will be a time. And just because we exit doesn't mean we don't believe in the product or the industry. We know that that only creates another opportunity to enter in reality. Okay? So you'll see the growth of other craft brewers that we were partners in grow substantially, who make great beer because we exited. Okay, so it actually creates other opportunities because they're still moving. They will slowly move towards monoculture and be minimised in quality in a sense over time. So exiting creates obviously life cycle reasons. There are reasons of product life cycle why you'd exit or plan for it. Competition. of us, people will build buildings in factories and erect them, so therefore the skill base changes. So if you go to the eastern states now, most advanced automated building company, United Unitised Building, is a factory in Melbourne. I think I've got 8 examples of multi-storey, high-density construction delivered already in Melbourne. And they'll be a globally delivered product based in different countries, and definitely in the next 5 to 10 years. So you'll see levels of competition. So it was a product we did a planned exit. There was with Mirvac, who were the best player in the market, and through the 70s, 80s and 90s in Australia. And that was a structured exit, so we could actually evolve out of that industry. And I looked after that company in the East Coast and its development side for about 8 years, I think. And then obviously scale. Scale also gives you reasons to exit. You might never be able to achieve the scale to be comfortable in, or you might be so strong in your scale that you, and the profitability at the time you're playing that product will create intense competition, and you can actually see that in front of you. So even in a Just Burgers world, which was a supporting a chef who worked with us in hospitality, we kind of had the skills to put him in the right place, call it geographically or demographically, but we knew every time we opened a shop, our competitors will open across the road. And it will always happen. And then maybe there's room for 2 or 3 competitors. So there may be a time where the model has to change, or the structure has to change, or there has to be an exit. But at the end of the day, we just assume, Justin can make a better product than his competitors, and literally live that turf till the point of maturity happens. So a lot of companies use the whole geographic plays in different ways. Obviously, I don't know if you studied, but on that Starbucks cluster model, they would go open a Starbucks shop, and there might be 10 other people pouring coffee in the area, but then they open a second one and a third one, and they kill 10 people selling coffee again, so then they control the 3 outlets. So they can expand through America, obviously, globally in that model, to some success in Australia, but not really. So there's obviously the ways you analyse exit. The exit is almost as important as the ways you enter those businesses also. So that's most of it. Is that enough time? Okay. So now it's, open for questions.
The global trend environment and climate change and building in a sustainable way is a huge trend that you can find. I find that in Australia it likes to be real. It is growing, but we're definitely not at the stage where we are building energy efficient products or with trending. Do you think that's an area?
It will grow. I think a lot of the research will show that if you put $100 into an environmental product to put into your house or wherever, a German would be happy to pay $700 or 7 years, 7 times, and the Australian's about 2 and a bit. Okay? So the culture inside of us isn't correct yet. But if you walk through Frankfurt Airport 20 years ago, the bins were segmented already into 3 to create a recycling attitude. 50% of the movements in Copenhagen are on bicycles. Okay? So, we don't even have, we redo St. Peter's Terrace, we don't have bike lanes down it. That's, they made the bike lanes wider in Melbourne. Copenhagen only builds bike lanes first with lights, then puts the cars second. So until you actually have, so they're all messages about sustainability and environmental. So our messages aren't strong. So there's been a lacking of political will, obviously, in that area, and we've been neglectful of all of those concerns for a long, long time. Not all will catch up and hurt us a little bit, The other side of the process that slows us down is our scale. Okay, so again, mono industries. There's 3 building product companies in Australia basically that monopolise the Australian marketplace. We're distant from other sources of product because of our isolation. So if I want to talk to window manufacturers about double glazed, fully sealed units, I've got to buy them generally out of Europe. Okay? No one's really doing a quality product that meets any of their standards in Australia. So therefore, if I'm in northern Italy, I can get the Austrian one. The Italian's not making them, but the Italian guy's seen the Austrian truck that was arriving, so he's already making them. The French guy's the same. So suddenly in Europe, all of those environmental things have changed and everyone's adapted to them. One, for climatic reasons. But even Britain didn't. You know, we came out of a British housing model where the windows never really shut that well. There's always a gap under the door. But that doesn't happen in Switzerland or Germany. Okay, so Europe learned differently. Australia came out of a kind of lax attitude, I think, out of their kind of a UK model. So we do live a long way behind, an intelligent engineering marketplace. But I think it will adjust. You can take a lead in that segment because there's enough. You can already see it. There's obviously people who, with lots of discretionary dollars, are already spending those products. Buying them, importing them. I know, there's Swiss window systems here, there's German window systems here. You can buy all these products and actually make those decisions. So examples are appearing. There's no market leaders in it, but there are opportunities.
In a monoculture global thing, so they're quite, they succumb quite easy to any industry crisis, right? So what about people, what about companies that go against the norm? Are they more resilient than a monoculture? Let's say people didn't want to drink coffee anymore. A lot of the coffee companies will probably close a lot, right? How about people that went a different route? Are they more resilient, or will they still suffer around roughly the same percentage of loss?
Look, I think when you look at a product, so you look at, say, coffee or tea, and we did the same with beer, we had to think, how long has this product been around? Do we think it's going to be here? We know that there will be a global movement in front of us of stopping people to drink alcohol. You've seen the ads in America. You've seen the damage spirits do. Okay? So we've already seen what spirits do to people. It's a massive negative, okay, in a health sense. But then we looked at beer, the same as we looked at tea, and we thought, which companies on earth have existed that I can think of for more than 400 or 500 years? I can think of some tea companies and some beer companies. How long have people been drinking beer? 8,000 or 10,000 years. Do they love it? Yes, they do. And then we thought about the product. When we built Little Creatures, you can't buy any spirits there. You can buy beer, a glass of wine, and some food. No spirits. Okay? Because we knew spirits would actually change who we are, or who the customer is, and how they enjoy our space. So you actually then think, as an example, so I actually thought, yes, beer will survive. It's had a lot of history. Coffee will survive. Okay? But does that mean the coffee percolator survives? If I'm making percolated coffee, no. Do I make, the Italian espresso machine? Look, think of the growth of the espresso machine in Australia. So it's all, segments within that, call it drinking category. There are things always happening. There's ways to you can study them. We used to study them and talk about the history of them, the corporate history of them, the culture of them. functional adaptation cues to make the space looking okay, attach date plans, and then said, now can you please give me a brief? Okay? So it's analysed, you know, we actually look at it from a perspective of what is the philosophy and passion that we want to know about before we draw a cocktail party. And that's like a space hypothesize this room. So, you know, you can actually analyse things very well if you stop and think about what do you know, it's not, it's beer, but where does beer sit in the planet? What are the global trends that confront it? What's its history? What's its social policies? What's its environmental stories, etc., etc., etc. You know, so we try and put it into a holistic sense always. And I think every product should be the same. You know?
I had the same question. All the examples you gave seem to be like success stories in a sense. I just wanted to hear like stories from you about like business failures. Do you have anything?
I mean, I'm trying to think. I mean, if you do, you know, when I sold my company to Mirvac, so that was in 2001, you know, Bob Hamilton had done, I think, 280 something development projects in their history, and they made a mistake once. Okay? And they never bought another company, and they kind of bought our company. Because, you know, our philosophy is the same. Every project is a project. Whatever you do, it's a project. Okay, so you study it. So every property development for us is a project that you study to the nth degree. You do all the research too. You do, you know, as much mathematics as you possibly can do to ensure you don't make a mistake. Okay, so I'm sure there's, you know, a small project that we've done where we haven't made a profit, you know, and there might have been 2, 3, 4 occasions in my life that that's happened. But even if you realise, I mean, you should be reviewing this thing through its life, okay? So how we look at a project is we can make all the decisions in the world at the start. We can buy the land, analyse the product we're going to put there, do all our research, know that we're right versus our competitive set, because it's a pretty basic thing to study. You drive up and down the streets, analyse the market, go to the council, figure out who's got approvals, look at the absorption rates, look at the approval rates. You can analyse all of that and know, yes, in the worst market, I will sell 1.3 units per week based on the competition, etc., etc. So you can actually look at all of it. You know if you're going to be successful on the day you buy. What you don't, what will change your success is the things you don't have control over, which is generally the economy, global catastrophes, etc. So as long as you understand what are all the things that really you have control over and make well-disciplined decisions about, the opportunity of failure is very small, because you can do many things to create a prediction of the future. Okay? I can pre-sell to make sure I have no future risk. Okay? I can lobby the government to say there's too many approvals, stop approving things, make the rules harder in that industry, etc., etc. You can actually do things to then counter those risks, or do things today to read the future. So, you know, you'll make mistakes, but they should be very small if you do all the things that are in your control. And when you've made a mistake in a geographical sense that you can't change quickly, then you see, how can I adapt that thing to make it survive because of the mistakes I've made? Because you can't assume that what I've made all those decisions on are, you know, they're totally not flexible in every way. So you think, okay, I can actually move it down 5% or move it up 5% or amalgamate that or merge that or discount quick to minimise the risk because the other product's coming on. So you can actually make lots of decisions
Adrian, over the years you've looked in your crystal ball and you've predicted retirement housing, urbanisation, beer. Do you see, how do you see the market or the position for philanthropy in the arts?
I think it's an area that's continually growing. I mean, it's obviously our model, you know, we're a young city, okay? So that's how I would put it in the context of a city. So at Federation, Melbourne had 1 million people, okay? Sydney 600 and something thousand, 35,000 Perth. So then you look about philanthropy, they go, you know, Perth's really bad. I go, well, actually, in reality, we've grown very quickly, all right? It's not Europe where we're in the 6th generation of inheritance from some lord who's just thrown the money waves in and no one's ever worked for it. Melbourne's inheritance, obviously, allows philanthropy also, okay? We're going into that next wave. So we're assuming philanthropy will grow substantially in front of us. So in the things I'm involved with, I'm involved in Giving West, which is about educating corporates and individuals of how to deal with the problem. And it's all about making sure we're talking to a younger set, okay, to be in front of the wave of inheritance that gives them the decision making to say, I'm going to die anyway, okay? It's economically a much better reason. If you think about the fundamentals, either drop dead and give your money away, or give it away while you're alive, get some benefit, make the economy and the social structures better for your business, okay? And get a tax deduction. So it's economic sense, so that we see it that way. Us supporting the arts, culture, Art Rage, the Art Gallery, theatres in Perth, was making the city a better place for me to sell my units in. Okay? That's how we see it. You know, in every project we do, we have a community plan. So Little Creatures we made sure the printer would continue in Fremantle. We supported the hospital. We supported community groups. We did everything in that community possible, okay, to make it a better community. Okay, we do that in home unit development, in social housing, in whatever we do, because it actually, we win out of it. So if more and more people think about the benefits of this, and it's an economic investment in reality, but it's actually a wise business decision at the same time being a staff. Yeah, I mean, usually similar beliefs, and I've always had the same partners, be it in joint venture or in direct partnership. A lot of it's kind of we try and talk about what we want to do at the start in a sense, and write out, not write out, but just think about it, have a few discussions and go through things. We just selected a new staff member in one of our businesses who's an important general manager of that product when it opens. We would have spent 6 months chatting, we'll appoint them. They'll start next March or April. That would have been quite a long process of getting comfortable, making sure everyone's on the same page, has the same beliefs, but yeah, we look at what they know, what they think, what they like, what's their favourite animal, what's their favourite colour, all those kind of things, In a sense, it's all those kind of questions to try and get a good understanding if we've got a fit for the long term. And a lot of the people, and we're not trying to be a big company anymore. I mean, we've left that. We've got a fairly small office, quite a tight little team, and a lot of the people, I'm not the general manager, I'm a retired person in a sense, but I'm a director there. But Tim, who's the general manager, is I think 37 years old, graduate here, hunted out on Macquarie, ended up, in Canada, Macquarie, out of that kind of life, came back, had a rest from all that hard work, works alongside us. Another couple of people have been there since traineeships while they're at uni, have been there every day since they left school in a sense, still working with us. It's a variety, there's obviously accountants and other roles, but the front end's kind of people who've got a bit of hospitality, property, back skills, mainly Perth people, not necessarily. We interviewed a girl from Cornell, obviously it's a kind of commerce degree, I think it's called a science degree there for some reason, but it's a hospitality university, the best name in America. But yeah, it's a variety of things. It's usually been with people for quite a while.
Can I just ask one last question? You didn't mention at all how much risk can we find in the ones that if there are high debt ratios, disadvantaged, the people lending others generally more conservative.
I mean, financial risk is obviously, that's why it's called risk. Okay? It increases your risks. People have different philosophies. We never used to measure return on equity, okay? Which is obviously a big measuring device of financial groups. Because obviously the greater your debt, the higher your opportunity for return on equity. Okay? So it actually blurs your vision. So that was our first lesson. Never look at return on equity because it actually creates greed. Okay? So if we always thought you basically get a return for doing a good product. Okay? The returns out of kilter, there's something, lots more questions to ask because the risks now, should be questioned. There must be things that you're not seeing. The fundamentals of time, obviously we're buying something that we're happy to keep for 100 years. The way we look at it is a little bit different, but we're very conservative. Again, a little bit of early research was what was the life cycle, or the lifespan actually, of listed development companies. You can actually, get the ASX to analyse it. What's the average lifespan of development companies? What's their return on equity? It's very, very short, So most developers and private developers was 10 point something years in Australia. Most people didn't live through 2 cycles. Okay? Because they use gearing. So, you know, if you think you've got $10 million, so you borrow $70 million to do an $80 million project, and the $80 million project in a recession will fall to $50 million roughly. But don't forget a highly, you know, if you went and bought a $100 million land subdivision in 2007 in Perth, that might be worth $15 to $30 million of money today, and you paid $100 million in 2007. Okay? And I think this example after example, I know people have walked away from $25 million deposits. Okay? So I think, so that's actually what happens, because obviously what was going on through the 2000s because of the power of computers is everyone was saying escalation of 4% on sales, escalation of 2% on costs. Do a 20-year project, look like a genius. Discount it back, do an IRR, do a return on equity, absolute genius. Outbid each other, so everyone outbid themselves all over the world based on mathematical models that are illogical, that wouldn't pass 1 second of risk analysis, but everyone was buying. The whole world was buying. When we sat with Babcock and Browns to buy our villages, we knew the world was at an end. Okay? It was obvious because they're just doing maths and just crunching maths, using little curves to actually maximise purchase price and discounted cash flows. And they were happy to pay, I don't know, 2, 3, 4 times value. Okay? So gearing's an instrument that is what Galbraith said. And he's still the most intelligent of those economists that we should listen to, because that's all it is. It's when banks are lending money, they shouldn't. The attraction of gearing is a greed-driven commodity that leads generally to an opportunity of more disasters. You know? So there's other ways of having, you know, call it more equity and less risk, besides having, you know, being focused on the winning side of it, you know.
Thank you.
Okay.
Michael, thank you. Is no correct answer that if you answer basically the opposite, you won't get a good grade. It all depends on how you have actually justified your answer. So my recommendation is don't go out there trying to look at these companies, what they've actually done in real life, because in many cases you can find that, but it's not necessarily going to help you. Okay? Don't try and look for other people that are posting their assignments online or they recommend it, because you know, if it's out there, I generally have seen it, and I wouldn't have chosen those cases if what I thought was, you know, the good answer was out there. Okay? So rely on yourselves and your skills. Try and identify that there's this information. Try and use some of the theory that you use in the class if you can. Okay, if it is appropriate in the appropriate context, to analyze some of the frameworks. And let these conclusions then emerge from the evidence that you have collected. Okay? Now, action planning is the last step, which basically is usually one of the questions that you have at the end. So some of the questions will actually usually focus on what is the problem, perform the analysis, and answer your questions in this regard. Usually the last questions are, what would you do in their shoes? What course of action would they recommend? So you usually ask them identify those steps. This is the course of action that you would take in their shoes. Now, another thing that I think might be quite useful for you guys is when I approach it as a student in group settings, especially for masters, because we did a lot of those at an MBA level, the Harvard desk. By the way, the ones that I've chosen for you are for an undergraduate level. Okay? When you work as a team, and it's very common for undergraduates, you just divide the case. You say, okay, it's 5 questions, 5 people, or 3 people. You get this question, I get this one, I get this one. Then just, you know, meet up together and write it all out. You will one person has written it. The thinking behind the whole case and the analysis has to flow. Okay? So with the woodholders that you've done in class, you've used the tutorial times to work on them. You haven't had to meet outside your tutorial times. But has that worked? Has anybody had to meet outside tutorial times? Yeah? Okay, a couple of people. But generally you didn't have to. With this one, you absolutely have to meet, and my recommendation would be nice and early, at least a week before the due time, meet with your group after they've read their case, and then individually try to answer this and have a good understanding of the answer. So not written out the answer, but just have the analysis of what they think would be the useful data, which kind of frameworks they would use, and what is their recommended solution to all the answers, okay? And then you all meet, you discuss them one by one, you agree on what you're going to say in each one, then you divide the work. Each person goes individually and writes it up. You can either meet or you may not need to meet a second time, but one person will need to be, in order for this to work, responsible for taking everything together and compiling it all and making sure it flows, and everybody else needs to be part of this process of reading the whole thing, how their section fits with the rest. So you either meet or you don't meet, but I would highly recommend you answering that as a group first and then dividing the right now. Okay? If you want to really try. Now, on this particular case, and because unfortunately a lot of you have not read it, just give you a very quick summary here. Okay? It is a small media-based company in Toronto. It is selling advertising space above urinals and handwritings in restaurants, bars, and universities. Okay? They do have a large rival which has just entered Toronto space, and their product is not significantly different from theirs. They basically are, providing the same product. It is different location. The competitor is 7 times bigger than them. Okay, and now their competitor is offering a new product. He's offering free postcards to these bars and restaurants with a funded by the advertisers. So what does that mean? The advertisers pay for the campaign to print the ads, and they just put them as an additional service to those bars and restaurants where they actually advertise in their inventories. Okay, and the major decision that they can make is should they match this offering or not. Now, what kind of case is this in terms of the area that it focuses on, the theoretical context? Is it a marketing case? Is it HR? What is it about following, let's say, in terms of an area of business focus? Sorry? Marketing? Anybody else? Anyone has read the case?
Business growth.
So it's a business growth, opportunity screening. It does have components of marketing, growth, business growth strategies. So initially when you read the case, try and focus again which area of what I've learned in the different book chapters and the lectures that I've attended does it relate to. So I can look either one area for guidance or theories and ways to think. Okay. Now. We have done this framework. We've come across it a couple of times in the last lecture. And as that lecture, I thought it would really go really well. I thought I'd put it up again, and that's why I chose this case to go through with you. And let's have a look at the different strategies for growth. Okay? Which ones of those does this company currently employ? And which one are they considering? Yes.
Consider a new product.
Yeah, in the existing context. Yeah, so they're considering a product development strategy. Yes. What kind of strategy are they currently That's right. So it's a market penetration strategy. Okay, how can we penetrate the market? How can we sell to more customers our existing product? And then I'm contemplating, should we add a new product and try and develop this product, this new product, and sell it to our existing market of basically the bars and restaurants that we're currently dealing with, but also our advertisers. So it's an interesting case because they have two different types of customers really, or maybe three even if you think about it. They have the advertisers who pay for these campaigns. Then they have the restaurant owners and the bar owners who get paid to for these advertisements to take place in the locations, facilities. And then they have the end customer, who is the consumer, which is the youth population that frequently uses those restaurants and bars and uses those outlets, okay? So this is the end customer that they are aiming to, okay? So in a case like this, this is the way that we think, and these are the kinds of things that we say, okay? Which are the customers? What is the product? What kind of strategies are they currently following? What are the strategies that they are aiming to develop? Now, what about their competitors? What are the competitors in terms of this?
Diversification.
Yes, so new product in a new market, which is more risky, based on what we've heard, okay? They've already, however, entered the market, okay? And they're operating in this market, which we need to at least note. But they don't have anywhere near the number of existing customers and outlets that our company does. Now, in terms of the market penetration strategy, what are the ways you think that you can actually achieve that? How can you manage to sell more products? In the current product is the existing market. What kind of things should they need to do, or would they be aiming for? Sorry? Yes, yes. But what I'm trying to say is, okay, so they're trying to, number one, what, build new customers, or what are they trying to do from a practical perspective in terms of strategy? Yes. So there are a couple of things that you can do. These are the key three ways of actually developing a penetration strategy, okay? You can encourage your current customers to buy more. Does that make sense? We've spoken about this time after time, repeat business, okay? How can we maybe put more advertising positions in our existing locations, if possible? How can we approach the current advertisers that are funding or what we are conducting their campaigns for more business, okay? So we can basically advertise them in more locations, okay? How can we attract our competitors' customers? Should they already have some, okay? And then how can we convince non-users who look like our current customers, buy, okay? And there's some questions there, some interesting information about the university segment. So you can actually build the information that's on the case to say, okay, these are the kinds of strategies that they should be looking into, or they might already be looking into in this. And now they're considering new product development. What are the benefits and what are the costs associated with it? Now, yes?
So can I ask a question? Do you mean the end consumers that's actually going into and utilizing those advertisements, or actually using the product that the advertisements are?
Sorry, come again. So when it comes to number 3, convince non-users to present with the current buyer's device, which means,
Yeah.
yeah.
Or encouraging more customers, yeah, to buy.
So who is the customer when I'm referring to this? No, I'm not referring to the end consumer. I'm referring to the kind of people that they deal with. So they the bars, the restaurants, but also the advertising companies, because they are the one, the advertisers are the ones actually paying for this. Okay? So we're shooting for new develop different strategies to develop networks and customers customers, so it's extremely vital that they build those relationships and offer them something for allowing them to actually paying them a small amount to allow them to advertise in their space, okay? Now, anyone that has read the case that can give me some qualitative reasons why we should, let's say, go into this new product? What are the benefits or what are the costs, downsides associated with it, the risks? Have you printed a one-page of your answers by any chance? Or written it down? If you can write your name, I will collect these after. Okay, for the ones that have done it. Now, what would be the risks, let's say, associated with that? You're a very new company, a startup, you're growing really fast, and you are considering it, one of your major competitors is entering your market and you're considering matching your offering. What could be the risks associated with that? Yes?
If you do this postcard, you can't concentrate on your main business, which is the
Exactly, and it's actually written in the case, okay? So a lot of these things, they actually are even verbalized in the case for you to just identify those things and spell them out. So obviously there is a risk that you might be taking away your resources, your time, the money, and or whereas you're still very small and you don't necessarily have this luxury and investing them in a different product line. Any benefits that you can see?
They already have the customers, the bars and so on, they already deal with them, so.
Exactly. So maybe they don't actually have to do so much work to offer them their postcards on top of what they're doing, especially with their existing networks. And it's a very good, you could say, fit. Obviously, the one product with the other product. Okay? It's exactly the same networks and they need to be done for both. Okay? So this will not be online, and there's really no point of you taking digital notes because this is an exam case. This is just to show you the way of thinking when you are presenting these and analyzing these cases, okay? So adding a new revenue stream is a benefit, matching your competitors' offering is a benefit. You can potentially target different advertisers, possibly, okay? You just try to think outside the box. It does increase complexity, it requires management time and uncertainty and all the other resources that you take away from growing your existing business. And it's also uncertain as to whether these postcards are going to be successful in the market. Okay, we have no information in this whatsoever on that. Now, in any case, not all the cases, but in most cases we have numbers, you generally can also do quantitative analysis. Okay? And you can do it in many different ways. It's not always a correct answer. Has anyone done any quantitative analysis? What do you think? Yes?
Well, there's 100 universities and 33,000 restaurants, bars and so on, so even if they only took a 10% market share, there's about 3,360 possible venues, which they're not really covering very much of at the moment.
Yeah.
So there's space there, and I think they have an average of 5 ads per venue at the moment. So and even if they sold them at the lowest rate, which is about $27 per venue, that would generate 23 million a year, about half of which, 13 million, actually goes back to the venues, which still leave them a profit of
Okay. So
10 million.
that's an analysis of the actual existing business.
Just of the existing business.
Of the
alone.
existing business going
So
forward.
there's quite a bit of potential even just in the existing.
Yep. Anyone has any potential knowledge on this new product? Functioning numbers? As I say, there's no right or wrong way of doing this. I'm just going to show you a little example. Again, it's not the best way to do it. It just says in the case that if you do 1,500 postcards in 50 restaurants, it generates this kind of campaign from advertisers. These are the costs for each campaign covered by the advertisers, okay? And then maybe, again, you don't have all this information, so sometimes you need to assume costs. I'm assuming there will be a cost to the restaurant owners, you will pay them something for them to carry those postcards, okay? Still, it gives you a good gross profit per campaign, and if say you run 6 campaigns on these, the 300 of the current restaurants that they have, okay? So say you run 6 campaigns in the current sort of locations, 20 times a year, this is the kind of gross profit you could potentially get just from the postcards. Market. Okay, I'm just going to leave it at that, and I'm actually not going to